Stealing by Floyd Salas. Larry had given me the ride downtown on his bike. He was in the same fifth grade as me, although he was a head taller and a year older. He lived on 30th Street in Chestnut, a short block from my house, on 30th and Adeline. He took me to Payless Market on 19th and Telegraph. It was a huge warehouse of a market, filled with different types of stores and stands, including a market with sundry goods. For some reason, we went in there, and the next thing I knew, he was taking a pen out of a drawer, and I did too. Then I followed him over to a side entrance where he ducked under the turnstile. I squatted to duck under the turnstile and sneak out without paying when steel fingers clamped on my shoulder, and I looked up to see a woman in dress clothes pulling me back into the sundry goods section. Trapped in the pinchers of her fingers, I was marched through the stalls, up some steep back stairs and into an office with wide windows that looked over the entire store. We were right above the stand where the pens Larry and I had stolen were kept. There was a man up there who must have been watching all the time. I was so scared I shook. When she asked me to give my name, I lied and said Floyd Sanchez, giving my mother's maiden name instead of Salas. She pointed to the floor beneath a high counter and said, "You sit down under there," which I did. When she asked me what my religion was, I answered Catholic, and she said, "Catholics don't steal." I just stared at the floor. She made me sit on the floor under the counter for a long time. I didn't have the slightest idea what was going to happen to me, but I knew I was in deep trouble. I knew my mother was going to spank me and that I had committed a terrible wrong, even a sin, for stealing. I was so ashamed I couldn't look up. Finally, the woman said, "You come out of there and stand over here." I got up and stood in front of her desk. She sat behind it and made me empty my pockets. I guess to see if I'd stolen anything else. I had 10 cents in my pocket, so I wasn't penniless. But there was also a test I'd taken in grammar school with my name, Floyd Salas, written across the top. "Oh, you not only steal, but you lie too," she said, and I felt my face light up with hot shame. "How old are you?" she asked. "9," I said. "Are you sure?" she said. I nodded my head, afraid to insist, even though I was 9 and small for my age. "What's your phone number?" she asked. When I gave it to her, she immediately picked up the phone and dialed the number. I remember she asked over the phone, "How old is he?" She listened for a moment and then said, "7," and glared at me as if I had lied to her again. Evidently, the person on the phone at home was trying to help me by saying I was younger than I was. And she handed me the phone. "Hello?" I said when my sister Dorothy said, "Floyd, what's the matter?" I went, "Oh, Dorothy," and burst out crying. I was sobbing so loudly the woman took the phone from me. I don't know what else she said, but she hung up the phone and looked at me. I was still sobbing, rubbing my eyes with the back of my hand, trying to hide my face. Finally, she said, "You can go home now, but don't come here and steal ever again. Do you understand?" I nodded, still sobbing, and walked out, following her pointed finger to the swinging gate that led down the narrow steps to the ground floor. I hurried down 20th Street to San Pablo in the warm sun, my face feeling stiff from all the dried tears. I hurried north on the east side of the boulevard past the giant red granite cathedral of St. Francis Catholic Church, which made me feel guilty again. I'd committed a sin and I knew it, and God would punish me for it. I turned my face away towards the Greyhound bus depot across the street, which, as usual, had a lot of people moving in and out of the front door. Then I looked ahead again, up toward 30th Street, where I had to turn to head home in a few short blocks. I was going to get my just desserts for sure from my mother, the second punishment after the store detective grilling. When I started across 22nd Street and crossed over the streetcar tracks where the electric B train was bound to the Bay Bridge for San Francisco, I saw a kid I knew casually from Clawson Grammar School sitting on a shoe shine kit. He was a brown Filipino kid named Vincent. He and his sister were the only Filipino kids in school. I was so glad to see someone I knew. I stopped to talk to him. Although we weren't friends, I told him what happened to me, saying I was probably going to get a spanking when I got home. He squinted up at me through strands of black hair that fell across his eyes and nodded. You want a donut? I asked. He nodded again, so I stepped into a donut shop next to the old fashioned beer joint on the corner and bought two big sugar glazed donuts for a nickel. I stepped back out and gave him one. I stood next to him until we both finished. Then, my face still stiff from the dried tears, I waved goodbye and started up San Pablo towards home. I was getting gradually more and more scared the closer I got to home, and I was trembling when I crossed Adeline on 30th Street and saw my white house in the center of the block. It was a pretty house, solidly built, with love seats in the hallway and in the front room, wide room on the second story, with big walk in closets and windows all around. It had been built in the 20s, probably, but it didn't look pretty to me then. I was plain scared and could barely reach out for the front doorknob when I crossed the porch. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, Dorothy rushed up to me and said, What happened, Floyd? I, 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 I couldn't finish because my mother stepped into the hall and, with a worried crease between her brows, stared at me through her rimless glasses, her green eyes shimmering with pale light, and I started to cry again. Come on, my mother said, and grabbed her purse from the dining room table and crossed the coat rack to get her coat. I'm going to find out what's going on right now. I cringed and started crying even more, knowing I was going to have to get whatever I deserved, but really dreaded having to face that woman detective again. You get your coat too, Dorothy. We're going down there right now. Oh, I moaned, getting a taste now of the final day when God would pass judgment on me. Dorothy got her coat too, and Mother turned and reached for the door when Al came running down the stairs from the second floor. He grabbed my hand and ran up the stairs, pulling me after him, refusing to come down when my mother said, Albert, Albert, come down here. He's already paid enough, Mama, he called back and pulled me down the hall into our bedroom, right in front of the house. It's okay, Floyd, it's okay. Just don't do it again, he said. He hugged me and rocked me back and forth. He was back with the family again after being in reform school for 6 months. When my sobbing finally quieted down and my chest quit heaving, he said, Who took you down there? Larry Andre, I said. It's all right for now, Al said, but don't let anybody lead you into anything like that again. Okay, I said, breaking into another sob, feeling like my chest was going to crack with racking pain. Suddenly, I heard my name being called, Floyd! Floyd! And Albert let go of me. We both stepped into our second story window. I could see Larry out there on his bicycle, looking towards the front door below us, his brown curls falling into his forehead. Did he take you downtown on his bike? Al asked. I nodded. He said, Wait here, and left the room. I saw him go out on the porch below me and shout, You get away from here, kid, and don't come back around my little brother again. When Larry looked up at him with a pale, scared face, Al said, You heard me. Get going. Larry didn't say anything. He just pushed off his bike and quickly pumped out of sight. I felt sorry for losing a friend, but I felt really grateful for my brother, who came back up the stairs and said, Come on downstairs now. Mom's fine. You're okay. Just learn something from it. Never steal again. You don't want to end up in a reform school like me, do you? No, I said, squinting my eyes with hot tears that rolled out again. Come on down then, Al said, and taking my hand, he led me out the door and down the hall to the stairs, where I could hear my mother in the kitchen closing the refrigerator door. When I walked into the kitchen, still scared, both Mom and my sister turned to look at me. Mom's face was pink from the heat of the kitchen, but her green eyes were gentle. Dorothy smiled, showing that one dimple in her one cheek. I looked over at my brother, who smiled at me also.